afternoon. It's Deb McCarter. I'm the volunteer gardener here, the person who takes care of this garden for the Stanley Park Community Association. I'm considered the coordinator. What I'd like today is to show you a wee bit about tomato plants. There's an awful lot of people, I understand this year, who turn to gardening, getting their hands dirty in the soil. Just so you know, gardeners are amazing people. If you're one of them, we love you dearly. Gardeners are patient, they're knowledgeable, they enjoy learning on a continual basis, they're thoughtful, they're generous. We need more gardeners in our community. Since gardeners usually plant tomato plants in this area because we all know fresh tomatoes from your garden are the best ever, I thought I'd give you a few thoughts on planting tomato plants. This one was just recently bought, like earlier today, from one of the grocery stores. It's just a pack that has 4 different plants in it. They're looking a little scraggly, but that's okay because once we get them in the soil, they'll perk up. What I'm going to do is take one of these out. And you can see it's got like a lot of nice little white roots in it. It's outgrown the little cell pack it's in. You can see from all these little roots down here. Now I'd like you to have a very close look at this little plant. You see, look at the stem. See all these little tiny hairs along here? If you get this in contact with the dirt, you will have a root on each one of those little hairs. These plants were originally built so that you could plant them sideways in the ground and the little roots would come off the sides. Now, what we generally do in Ontario is we plant them so that we can trellis them or we can stake them, because tomato plants have a terrible propensity to disease and bacteria, so that they get their leaves start to fall off, and before the end of the season they're all wilted and they're not producing anymore. So to extend your season for these little cuties, what you're going to do is you're going to plant them about 10, 12, 18 inches apart, depending on the kind of tomato you have, and you'll enjoy, if you keep it so that it doesn't, so it has a path for air to get through the plants to keep them relatively dry, then you'll have a wonderful season. This one is a early girl variety. Early girl is an intermediate size of tomato. You've got great big tomatoes, the beefsteak one. You've got smaller tomatoes, the little tiny Tom Thumb tomatoes. Some tomatoes go on your trellis, some tomatoes go in your patio. Whatever your situation, buy the correct plant for yourself. This one, what we're going to do is plant it in our garden here. So I've got my little trowel out here, put that guy down here. Now what you're going to do if you're planting it in the soil like this is you're going to dig straight down and you're going to dig a hole that's about 2 or 3 times the size of that little pocket that little plant is stuck in. So this ground about 3 years ago was mixed up and rototilled so that we could use it for the garden here. Now I'm going all the way down pretty deep, and then I'm hitting a very solid base underneath. This garden was rototilled about 6 inches down. The dirt on the bottom is very condensed. So if you have a garden like this, it's quite easy to plant your plant so that it stands up. Some people, if you're just starting a new garden, might not have this much nice surface dirt here. And it's nice and loose so that the plants can go through the dirt and survive very well. What you might want to do in this case for this little person, and this little guy would work really well in that situation, is if you can't dig down because your dirt is far too solid, you might want to dig a bit of a trough and plant your plant that way. Because as I said, all these little tiny pieces in here, they will grow roots. So in this case, what you would do if that's your choice for your garden is you plant him this way and then cover him up. Now, this plant already has a little turn in it. That's obviously because, probably because this fell in its side in the store. So this one is just perfect for that kind of situation. We're not going to do that today. We're going to plant them this way, and in a couple days, this little stem will stand up. Well, here I go. I've got quite a large hole here, and that's because I want to plant this up the stem. I'm not going to just plant them down here. I'm going to plant them all the way to the top about here. Have a look at your plants when you get them. You should have 2 or 3 little plant stems at the top. But when you're planting right away in the windy weather here, I'm eating my hair. When you're planting in the garden and you just have very small sets, make sure you take all the leaves all the way down here and only have 2 or 3 at the top. And that will encourage a lot of roots coming out of the bottom, so you really give a lot of support for your plant. Remember, this is going to be bushy. This particular one is going to be bushy up to maybe 3 feet tall and 2 feet wide, so you need a very strong bottom base for it. So what I'm going to do now is put it in the dirt. Now, I'm going to hold it here, and because this ground is still relatively hard, and I want this baby plant to grow really well, I've got a container here of mulch. So what I'm going to do is use the mulch to go around this plant. Now, the mulch is right from our composters. This mulch has been, and I haven't made sure that it's just got tiny pieces in it, but this mulch has been sitting there for 2 years now. A lot of it is the clippings from the garden, some of the straw that we've used, so it's good quality stuff. So lay it down, don't push it down too much, because remember, the tender roots are going to be coming out of the plant and surviving in the ground here, and then you can kind of push the rest of this stuff around. Now, with this plant, see, I've got the 3 little pieces up. Be very careful pushing it down. Be also very careful about the fact that you don't have a little dip around this plant. Remember, if the water stays on the leaves, if it becomes too moist, then you're going to get a problem with infection and disease on this plant. And you want to keep it green for as much as a season as you possibly can to make sure you get lots of tomatoes and a good harvest. So here we go. We take this, we plant it around to make sure there's a wee bit of a hill, to make sure that the water is not going to collect on the base. And also, on a regular plant, if this was standing up, you wouldn't have these leaves touching the ground. Now, I'm hoping that as soon as the sun comes out, it's going to stand up so that these leaves aren't going to touch. The whole idea is to make sure that you don't have leaves touching the ground, because that will encourage the bugs and disease to hit the leaves. So here we have one. The next plant that I plant is going to be about 12 inches or 18 inches apart, and I'll do the same thing. When they grow taller, I'll show you how to prune your plant. If we can prune the plant to make sure it stands up nice and tall in one of the tomato cages or one of the stakes that we have, then the wind can blow through, keep all the germs and the bacteria and the viruses from hitting the leaves, and keep the plant safe. So until next time.